I have played a lot of video games growing up, and while a lot of these games I look back at with some rose-tinted nostalgia glasses, there are games that I've played that are just magic from the moment you start playing them, because they did something completely new that you've never played before. And Halflife Alyx is definitely on that list of games. But before I can actually explain, I'd like to quickly explain what makes two other classic games what they are. Hey guys, if you're wondering, this video will have no spoilers on Halflife Alyx. This is just an analysis of its game mechanics. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out and motivates me to make more. With that being said, let's begin. When Super Mario 64 came out, while true that there were already 3D platformers in the market, none of them came close to the polish and execution that was Mario 64. Now, I know there's already about 1,000,000,001 videos already talking about this game, but there's a good reason for why that is, and that's because it was the pioneer to a whole new type of game, the 3D platformer. Back in the era of Super Mario 64, games were still normally 2D, and Mario suddenly had to go from a 2D platformer to a 3D platformer. And this wasn't something that could just be done with a magic press of a button. Everything had to be redesigned, everything had to be changed. The way platformers work in 3D versus 2D are completely different, and everything needed to be changed and redone. All this required some innovative thinking, and I congratulate Nintendo for achieving it. Which leads me to my next classic title that innovated. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Halo did not invent the FPS. There have already been games before it that have done incredible things for the genre on PC. But Halo had an entirely different job, bringing the FPS to the console. You see, before Halo, the last notable FPS that was on the console was GoldenEye. And sure, many people have great childhood memories about the game, but when you go ahead and try to play it now on this freaking controller, then it becomes pretty obvious that those memories are under a thick pair of rose-tinted glasses. Halo, on the other hand, did everything right, to the point where its core DNA is still present in the first-person games nearly 2 freaking decades later. So you might be asking why I bring up these two games in the video about VR and Halflife Alyx. Well, to put it simply, Halflife Alyx feels like a VR equivalent to these games. You see, VR up until now had plenty of games, but due to the niche state that VR is currently in, these games have been either small in scale, simplistic, or just lazy ports of already existing games, with literally zero effort put into actually making it work well with VR. Todd, you piece of shit, you couldn't even have the decency to fix the goddamn carriage bug. You literally only played the game on a Vive, so if anyone dares to play it on an Index at a high refresh rate, they get sent straight into the moon.
Rorikstead. I'm from Rorikstead. Oh god, where are they taking us?
Nowhere, apparently. Point is, Halflife Alyx stands as the best single-player VR game you can play right now. But you probably already know that. But Halflife Alyx is more than just a great VR game. It's the blueprint to VR. When Bungie made Halo CE, no company up until then really knew how to make a console FPS. Likewise, up until Halflife Alyx, no one knew how to make a VR game. When Halo was released, it had something extremely revolutionary. On the Xbox controller, you could use the left stick to move around, backward, strafe, left and right, and then get this, you can look around and move your first-person camera using the right stick. I take it you're probably not impressed. Of course it would have those controls. That's the control scheme for FPS games on a controller. Well, it's actually because Halo was the game that made this game the standard. And for nearly 20 years, 2 whole decades, FPS games have been using this exact same layout. VR is an incredible medium, but it comes with a ton of design issues when making a game for it, and Valve has painstakingly gone through each problem and solved it better than pretty much any other VR game developer has. For example, the hand system. Nothing in VR breaks my immersion more than being able to effortlessly move my hands through objects and walls. It makes the world feel weightless and fake. And honestly, I didn't really know how this could ever be fixed. But luckily, people way smarter than me at Valve have come up with a solution. Halflife Alyx's hand system is nothing short of genius, and to try to explain why that is going to be a bit of a challenge. But I'll try to do my best. So while I'll say Valve developers are kind of wizards with some things, they aren't actually magic. They aren't magically going to stop your hands with some futuristic force feedback given from the implant they put in your head. At least, not yet. Instead, Valve made it so that while your VR hands can't actually clip through objects, you can still see where your hands still are relative to you in the world via the hologram. And let me take a quick second to thank Nimsoni for this gameplay footage over here. He actually does a way better job at explaining this whole hand system than me, and if you want a much better explanation, his channel and his video are in the description below. So why is the solution so good? It's because it combines the best of both worlds. On one hand, you won't break immersion by having your hand effortlessly clip through objects like they aren't even there. While at the same time, the player won't confuse and lose track of where their hands actually are. Not to mention that every time your hand does hit or collide with an object, you get haptic feedback from your controllers via vibration. And while that may sound like a small detail, it makes a huge difference in immersion. It makes you actually want to stay within the constraints that the game has given you, and makes the objects and the world you're in all feel like they have weight to them. This system alone makes such a huge difference that once I went back to other VR games, something just felt missing from them. And at first I wasn't exactly sure what. But eventually I realized how genius Valve's hand system really is. I feel that every single developer making a VR game right now and haven't implemented a system that is at very least similar to Valve's, then I'm sorry, but your game is going to feel outdated. It would be pretty much like making a first-person shooter without the first-person shooter control scheme that Halo made. Frankly, I see a ton of current VR games that are going to age like milk, and it's all because they don't have this robust hand system like Halflife Alyx. And just to top it off, Alyx has the decency to make pretty much anything you see grabbable. The amount of times I play a game in VR and see an object that I can't grab is too damn high. It's small things like this that break immersion in VR. You're just given an obvious reminder that you're in a game. Valve also had another goal in mind when they made Halflife Alyx, and that was accessibility. Now, if you don't know anything about VR, let me explain to you the methods of traversal. You can obviously just physically move in real life, but obviously, unless you have an access to a warehouse, you're not going to get very far just on that. So then, no big deal, right? Just add moving strafing to the game, just like in the regular non-VR FPS shooters. Except, there is a small little problem called motion sickness. Moving without physically moving in the real world can be disorientating, which is why teleport is such a popular alternative. Now, personally, in the time I received my index and Half-Life Alyx launching, which was about 2 weeks, I was already adjusted enough that I could play the entire game with smooth locomotion. But not everyone can do that, which is why Valve has so many options like smooth or snap turn, teleport, shift, or smooth locomotion. Even got left and right-handed play. And hold on one sec, I'm gonna complain so no one else makes this mistake, but when I want to play the game left-handed, I just want to use my guns on my left hand. Stop inverting the joystick because no one in the history of ever who has played an FPS has tried to move using the right joystick and look around using the left. I literally just discussed how FPS games have been controlled for the last 2 decades. It's heavily ingrained into my head, and it isn't going to change because I'm left-handed. So stop. I've had one too many games keep screwing this up, like Fallout and Skyrim. Yeah, I wasn't done with you, Todd. Stop screwing up my VR experience. Just get the fucking shit working. Come on, man. You literally are charging us to buy a whole separate game just so I have to mod it again to get anywhere near a decent playable state, Todd. You incompetent piece of shit. Anyway, this many game tweaks are necessary. For now, at least. VR is so new that the majority of people who are lucky enough to get to experience Halflife Alyx are more likely than not to have the game be their first VR game experience. So Valve needed to make this game as accessible as humanly possible. So there's an option for the VR veteran as well as the VR newcomer. Which is why I haven't mentioned Boneworks at all. While Boneworks is an excellent VR game, its lack of accessibility keeps it from greatness. I've seen people with hundreds of hours on VR get sick playing Boneworks, which is why, while I appreciate Boneworks as a VR game, it won't have anywhere near the same wide appeal and influence as Half-Life Alyx will. Mario 64 wasn't the perfect 3D platformer. Playing it now, the one thing you notice is the camera isn't perfect. But even then, games today still don't have that perfected. Likewise, I don't think Valve has perfected many of its systems, and it's going to be up to future VR devs to build on top of what Valve had. It's almost frustrating, really, to go back to other VR games because of how good Alyx was, but it made me really appreciate all the things they were able to accomplish. The best way I could describe that feeling that I got when I played this game would be this. It was like I time traveled into the future to play this game. And as soon as I was done, I was sent back. Once you're done with the game, that's it. You are no longer in the future. You're back in the year 2020 where everything is on fire both figuratively and literally. Now that I've finished Half-Life Alyx, it feels like I have to wait years for the rest of the industry before I can have an experience that can even get close to matching this game. And sure, games like VR Chat, Beat Saber, and Pavlov are all games that can hold me for virtually forever. I just want to be clear right now. I'm not sorry. I still very much hunger for that single-player, story-driven game that I know for right now makes no sense for developers to make. Valve had to be the one to bite the bullet and prove that VR can be an amazing platform for gaming. And as you can tell from my video so far, that I think they have very much succeeded. But until VR becomes a ubiquity, no developer will dream of spending money on something only a small sliver of people have the ability to even play, let alone buy. So Valve, in their current position of not having to do anything ever because of Steam, actually decided to push the industry forward with this game. Valve definitely isn't new to revolutionizing video games. They made Half-Life 1 and 2, for God's sakes, which both shaped the gaming industry back then. But this time around, I feel like with the lack of people who have played Alyx, the non-VR gamer watched others play the game and was just like, yeah, it looks aight. But trust me, watching this game versus playing it are completely different experiences, and I sincerely wish more people get the chance to experience this game soon. Years from now, Half-Life Alyx will be remembered as the first real VR game, even though it definitely wasn't. And even though future VR games might even be better at getting VR right than Alyx, I know that people in the future will come back to play Alyx and see that it was the only game of its era that will really stand the test of time. Thanks for watching my video. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded. Gonna try to fix that, hopefully. This video took a long time to make. Way longer than it should have, honestly. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, because I will be making new videos at a much more reasonable pace this time around. Promise. And if you just finished watching this and still want to see more, go ahead and watch my Steam backlog video. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks again for watching.